Okay, and time for our last module, or last video in this module, enzymes. You've probably heard of enzymes before, and we're just going to do a little brief introduction here, and we'll discuss them more in class. But for this video's purposes, you need to focus on what types of molecules are enzymes. What do we mean by an enzyme catalyzed reaction? What is an active site in a substrate? And why is the molecular shape key to an enzyme's activity? Those are your focus areas for this video. So first, when we say enzymes are proteins that catalyze metabolic reactions, what are we saying? We're saying that a macromolecule group, the proteins, some of those proteins are enzymes. That is, they serve as assisters or helpers for certain reactions to occur. So when we look at this reaction here, we have our starting molecule A. It is some chemical that can be turned into, through a chemical reaction, into B. B can be turned into C, and C can be turned into D. However, enzymes are required to make these reactions happen. A is not going to magically turn into B, or it may turn into B, but very slowly. So what we have to have is an enzyme, a protein that actually assists the reaction moving from molecule A to molecule B. A different protein, a different enzyme, will make the reaction happen from B to C, and then a separate one again will happen from C to D. So enzymes are going to be catalyzing, that is, making these reactions happen because of their particular properties. That'll be clearer in just one second. If you don't have the right enzyme, then you are not going to be able to carry out that reaction probably at the right rate. For example, there's a condition you may or may not be familiar with. It's called phenylketonuria, PKU. And babies that are born with this condition cannot metabolize certain amino acids correctly, in particular phenylalanine. And if they don't have the enzyme, if they are missing the enzyme to convert phenylalanine to tyrosine, then they build up the phenylalanine and it causes health problems, including mental retardation. So it's tested for immediately after birth. For those of us who don't have PKU, we're fine. We don't realize the difference. But because we have this enzyme, we have the ability to carry out this chemical reaction at the proper rate, so we don't have PKU. Again, for those who do have PKU, it's because they lack the enzyme and therefore they can't carry out this reaction at the right rate. So when we talk about enzymes and their parts, what are we talking about? Enzymes have very particular shapes, and as part of that particular shape, there's going to be a location called the active site. The active site is going to be the location where a substrate, another molecule, a chemical binds to the active site. So a substrate can be something like maltose, a sugar. The enzyme maltase is going to have an active site that allows that maltose to bind to it. And when it binds to it, it will help destabilize the bonds in maltose and help break it down, for example. In reality, and that's why I have the spinning one over here, this is an enzyme as well. In reality, this is what enzymes look like. But do note, despite all the squiggles and weird things on this spinning molecule, that there are particular locations, particular active sites where a molecule can bind if the enzyme is in the right shape. Speaking of shape, when we talk about characteristics of enzymes, we have to say that enzymes are very specific. They can only carry out certain reactions. You may have the condition PKU, as we mentioned, because you lack that particular enzyme, but that does not necessarily mean that you have another condition like alkaptonuria, another metabolic disorder. So an enzyme is specific to a particular shape. Well, rather, enzymes are very specific in shape, which means they can only carry out certain reactions. They can only convert A to B. The enzyme in that reaction that we saw earlier, and let me go back to it just for a second, there's a different enzyme for enzyme 1 than enzyme 2. That is, A converted to B, one enzyme does that. B to C, a different enzyme does that. So enzymes are very specific. Enzymes are not used up in the reaction, so they make a reaction happen. They break apart a big molecule or put together two molecules, but they're not used up or they're not changed in reaction, which means they can go over and over again. And enzymes make reactions happen at a much faster rate than they would ordinarily happen. Yes, certain chemical reactions will happen, but pretty slowly, especially at the body's temperature. But if enzymes are present, they occur at a lot faster rate. And you can usually recognize an enzyme by its name. Whenever you see the ending on an enzyme name, if you ever see Ase, then that refers to an enzyme. Maltase, sucrase, dehydrogenase, lactase. Whenever you see Ase, you know you're talking about an enzyme. Okay, I believe that's going to be it for our, let me check our slides. Let me go here. Yep, we're done. So what I wanted to get you to do at this point is you'll take your coaching activities on 2.2. I wanted to do this. Hang on. You'll do your coaching activities on 2.2, rather on Unit 2, and then you'll have an end of what I call a PCA, a pre-class assessment, where you get a chance to show what you know. That will be in a quiz format, and then in class next time we will pick up from there. We'll see how you did as a class, and then we'll discuss the ones that didn't make sense. Okay, you have just about survived your first flipped classroom, week 1. See ya.